Sign up with MyBookie. Use our promo code Gators to get your first ever deposit match dollar for dollar. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to GatorsBreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Joining me for this instant reaction not too long after Florida loses to UCF 29-17. My co-host Will Miles, you can find him on his site, readandreaction.com, on YouTube at Read and Reaction, and on Twitter at Will Miles SEC. Will, it's finally over.
That was pretty ugly, man. That was pretty ugly. I guess congratulations to Central Florida, or UCSF, whatever the officials called them. And hey, we knew it was going to be bad if we wound up losing to them. So we're going to have to hear from those guys for the rest of the off season. And thankfully, Billy Napier is here, and we'll see what he can build, because we're going to get these guys again in a couple of years, and we'll see where Gus builds his program and where Napier builds his. But a rough watch tonight, that's for sure.
Absolutely. We're coming on the heels, like I said, right? If you're watching live, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out here on Gators Breakdown. We are coming to you for the first time. We've done this right after the game. So first thoughts, hopefully Justin Shorter is okay. Nasty hit there toward the end of the game, was carted off the field. So hopefully he's all, hopefully we hear some word soon that he will be fine. So we'll be looking out for that. If anybody hears anything, put it in the YouTube chat. We'll do something different tonight too. Gators Breakdown Plus members will join us on the Discord side. So maybe we'll hear on that side as well if we hear anything soon about Justin Shorter there. So but yeah, Gators go down 29-17. Ugly first half of a game. UCS able to put some drives together in the second half, put some big plays together in the second half to kind of separate from Florida. Just big plays ended up being a whole lot of the difference. But it was just, man, everything. This game just encompassed the whole season. Besides turnovers, I mean, granted we didn't get the Emory Jones turnovers, but the penalties, the lack of accuracy. All over defense, lack of tackling at times, penalties on those guys, special teams. Oh, wow. I don't even know where to start on the special teams tonight, but it was just a perfect example tonight of just Dan Mullen's last season at Florida, these last few games without him as well. I mean, it's just it really was a perfect example of the way this year played out.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to do is express the same thing you did about Shorter. Hopefully he's okay. They did mention on the telecast that he was talking to the trainer as they were carting him off. So that's at least good news, at least from the initial indications, but obviously we'll wait to hear more there. But certainly our thoughts and prayers with him and his family. You never want to see something like that. But going to the actual game, the special teams, you kick one right off the guy. You got like 9 guys around it, and nobody's able to recover it, and UCF gets it. There was sort of a key sequence there, right, where you've got the onside kick failure. Even if I'm not even sure if they meant to do that. I couldn't tell on the telecast whether they meant to do it, but once they did it, it was like, oh man, well it's right there. Then they had the unsportsmanlike penalty on Dexter, the roughing the passer on Cox, so that was questionable maybe. Bernie has a chance to get an interception there in the end zone on that bad throw from Gatewood. That one's hard, right? That one's coming fast, but still hit him right in the hands. And then right after that, they got the 3 and out where Pierce goes for a yard. They throw a ball to Copeland for 5 yards. Then Copeland gets the offensive pass interference. And you're like, oh, God, 3 and out. And then they have Shorter wide open going down the middle and overthrow him. And then the next play is that 54-yard bomb to O'Keefe that just really sort of puts the game away. So it was one of those things where you just like everything in about a 2 or 3 minute span sort of all of the inconsistencies finally hit all at once. They had been sort of hitting, oh, we'll shoot ourselves in the foot here in the first quarter. Oh, we'll fail in the red zone. Oh, we'll make a bad decision as to whether to go for a field goal or go for it on fourth down. I think early in the game they went for it on 4th and 5, and Rick Wells sort of stumbled, hit him off the hands, and so they turned it over. Probably could have taken the field goal there. Though I'm okay with being aggressive there, and the ball hits him right in the hands. You need to catch that ball.
A lot of drops tonight, Will. Well, you just lack of focus. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you think about that 4th and 5, it came right after a 3rd and 5 where Kamori Campbell got hit right in the hands, right at the sticks. And so that's why they were going for it on 4th and 5. So there were individual plays the entire night that sort of just exemplified the season. And then there was about a 2 or 3 minute stretch where they had about 5 or 6 of those all come at once. And the minute those came, it was just like an avalanche of points for Central Florida. And, Florida couldn't keep up, which has sort of been the story of the season, right? I mean, we came into the season and I was just as guilty as anybody. I said, hey, I think Dan Mullen, I'm not worried about the offensive side of the ball. They're going to average 32, 33 points a game, and we're going to be fine. And end of the day, we lose to a Central Florida team that scores, and only scores 17. And that's kind of what the end of the year was like, is, the offense just sputtered the entire second half of the season. That's why you're 6-7.
Yeah, not sticking with the run enough. You were running the ball well, and for whatever reason, after those couple nice drives where you score touchdowns running the ball most of the time, you come out throwing the ball all over the place. And Will, let's get into it here. What took me just a little bit before we get started, bringing up these graphics just a bit here. Here is the stat comparison for Florida UCF. UCF ends up outgaining Florida 436 to 376. Florida with more passing yards, 171. To UCF's 148. UCF was able to hit their big ball down the field there for a big difference and a score on the touchdown. UCF outgains Florida on the ground as well, 288 yards to 205. You see the 8 penalties for Florida, 8 for 85. What do you think? Look, I think a few of them were questionable. Still, it was a common theme for Florida. Still, they were there. Even some of the questionable ones, there were others outside of that too that helped doom Florida. 20-19 edge for UCF in first downs. Neither team great on third down, but Florida a dreadful 2 of 13 on third down. Then UCF, look at there, 2 of 2 on fourth down. Florida 0 for 2 on fourth down. As you heard Will and I just discussed there, UCF ran a total of 75 plays to the Gators 67. 5.8 yards per play for UCF compared to 5.6 for Florida. Gators 6.8 yards rush. There you go. That's why you can be a little frustrated. Of course, once again, not sticking with the run game, not sticking with a hot hand at running back. It was Pierce early, Malik Davis as the game went on. Both guys did some good things. Florida, for whatever reason, once again decided not to stick with them. And the run game, no turnover for each team, but that's kind of – well, there you go. We talk about things that continued. No turnovers for the Florida defense once again. And I thought that might actually come around because the way they were flying all around the first half. They were in the backfield. They were creating a whole lot of pressure, a lot of havoc. I was just waiting for that turnover to come. It never did for the Florida defense. And they're 2 sacks apiece for each team. And we'll go to the offensive stats right here. And, of course, you look at it here, Emory Jones should have never been throwing 36 times. If you would have told me he was 14 to 36 before the game started, I'd have said, okay, well, Florida's going to lose this game. 14 to 36, 171 yards there for Emory Jones. Truett Whittemore 0 for 1, which would have been a rush. He saw Gamble wide open. I think he just tried to rush it, tried to get the ball out. Should have been an easy touchdown for Florida, but it was not. Score anyway with Malik Davis on the very next play there. But still a play there from Whittemore that he's hit at times this season, but 0 for 1 there for the game. And at receiving, Justin Shorter, Rick Welsh, Trent Whittemore, each with 3 catches. Shorter led the way, 54 yards there. And then rushing, of course, as I said, Malik Davis, 7 attempts, 86 yards in his finale, his hometown, 12.3 yards a carry, and he only gets 7 carries. Emory Jones, 10 carries, 62 yards. Damian Pierce, 13 carries, 57 yards. Was a force at the beginning of the game, and then Florida just decided not to run with him at the beginning of the game there, Will. So there's your offensive statistics. Will, what catches your eye overall And as we go through those stats there right quick.
I mean, the thing that really catches my eye is that you're supposed to be more efficient in the passing game than you are in the running game. Most teams average more yards per attempt in the passing game, even if they're terrible. And Florida averages 4.6 yards per attempt in the passing game. That's just not going to get the job done. That won't get the job done in Pop Warner, let alone in college football. So, yeah, that's the thing that jumps out at me. Obviously, the 39% completion percentage is a problem. You got their 12.2 yards per completion. So when they hit them, they actually did hit them down the field a little bit. But I think that's part of the problem, right? It wasn't until that drive in the fourth quarter where they came down and missed the field goal where they started throwing back shoulder throws to the outside, which is really where you figured they might have had an advantage as opposed to some of the stuff they were throwing over the middle. But to your point, I mean, they had 37 passing attempts. They had 30 rushing attempts. And that's with starting out the game with 14 rushes and 8 passes in the first quarter. So, they had 7 rushes and 14 passes in the second quarter, then 7 rushes and 8 passes in the third quarter, and then 2 rushes and 7 passes in the fourth quarter, which you can understand in the fourth quarter because they're behind, right? But you come out of halftime and you still chuck the ball all over the place.
Yeah, 6.9 yards per rush at halftime.
Look, I mean, Malik Davis had that big drive. He just got one more carry the rest of the game, right? Emory Jones, who we all know needs to be efficient in the running game and was in the first half. He had, in that first half, he had 8 rushes for 66 yards, so averaged 8.3 yards per rush. Had that big conversion, right? I think it was like 3rd and 16 or something, and he went for 19 or 20 yards. He had 2 rushes for -4 yards in the second half, and one of them was a sack. So they had that one rush where they got stoned before they missed the field goal. And that was the only time they ran Emory Jones in the second half. Here's the reality. He's the threat. He's not accurate enough to be able to keep the defense honest if the defense doesn't think he's going to go and doesn't think he's going to pull the ball down and run. And they just didn't do that very much there in that second half. And that's one of the reasons why the offense stalled. Now, the offense stalled in the first half too. I mean, there were a bunch of trips where they got either in the red zone or close to the red zone, either didn't convert it into points or had to settle for field goals. But, that's sort of been the story of the year, right? Is that Florida's offense is not explosive enough or has not been explosive enough to manufacture. They have to have drives that go 8 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 7 yards, and then they get the 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and if they can't convert, then that's the end of the drive. And we had a bunch of those in the first half. They only had 3 explosives through the first 3 quarters. They only had 1 explosive in the whole first half. And that's the story of the game, right? The offense bogs down like crazy when they don't get explosive plays. And the only place for explosive plays this year has been Anthony Richardson. And if we're honest, Richardson's the only reason we won the FSU game. He came in and he and Pierce led them to, I think, 10 of their 20, 2 scores out of the 3 scores they had in that game, or 4 scores they had in that game. They were the reason that they won that game, and they didn't have Anthony Richardson to go to.
Yeah, the FSU game probably looks exactly like this game if Anthony Richardson never plays.
Well, that's been the story of the year, man. If Anthony Richardson had played in any of these games, I feel like Florida would have had a better record because they had the montage of all the 1-score losses that Florida's experienced this year. Thankfully, they didn't show any of that Georgia debacle or the South Carolina debacle, but they showed the 4 1-score losses, and those 1-score losses are all tied into the fact that the offense is not explosive enough to be able to give Florida a lead. I mean, it's funny. I don't know the numbers, but I feel like Florida's been ahead 7-0 in every game this year. and then they just can't hold it. It's like the defense was fine for 3 or 4 drives. They get up 7-0, and immediately Central Florida comes down the other direction and punches it in and misses the 2-point conversion. But still, it's 7-6. That has been the story all year long, that when the offense has scored, gotten them up 7-0, they've then immediately stalled. And that's what happened in the first half, right? I mean, you look at the score.
First half, 10-9 Florida at halftime, 233 to 140 yard edge for Florida, 5.4 yards a play to 4.4 for UCF. So you averaged a whole yard more in the first half. As I said, 6.9 yards per rush. Emory was 9 of 22. He had 22 attempts in the first half. I mean, what? I mean, we slammed this staff, and rightfully so. I mean, come on, we knew the issue here. He should not have been throwing for 22 times in the first half. Should never happen. Pierce 10 carries, 52 yards. Davis 3 carries, 27 yards. It was obvious what was working, and you didn't stick with it enough. Second half comes with it. Gus Malzahn come out and say, "Hey, in the second half, we're gonna run the ball. We're gonna put a hat on a hat, and we're gonna run the ball right at Florida," and they did so.
Yeah, I mean, look, congratulations, Central Florida. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff that's correctable here and correctable pretty quick. And so that gives me hope for the Napier era as it starts. I think there's some disciplinary things that, guys who don't want um, to get on board are going to hear about it and are going to have their playing time affected. I think that, we're going to see guys like DeMarcus Bowman, Lorenzo Lingard have to step up because of departures, but also I think the best players are going to play. And at the end of the day, I think that, this game isn't a surprise. This is what we've seen all year. I mean, I expected, so Central Florida is not that great a team. And so I did expect Florida to win this game, but, and I think if you watch the first half, you walked away going, "Yeah, Florida's a better team. They just keep shooting themselves in the foot." Second half, I think you'd say,
before we
Central
go
Florida was
forward,
better.
I put the poll up at halftime. Does Florida win? 71, basically 72% of, I think it was around 400 voters there, because I only put it up for 10 minutes because I put it up right around halftime. 72% said yes, Florida was going to win the game, leading 10-9 at halftime.
Yeah. I mean, and the statistical profile said that you'd be right if you made that prediction, right? But here's the problem is that stats only matter if you can actually put the ball in the end zone. And
Well,
if you're
we learned that this year.
well, I mean, this is only the second time we've lost the stat battle, the yardage battle all year long. So, and even won it in the first half. That's why we were ahead by a point, because we won the yardage battle there in
There
the
you
first
go.
half. Look, man, I think at the end of the day, and I think you sort of felt this coming into the game. I mean, I released an article today on Jack Miller, the transfer coming in from Ohio State, with a little blurb about the Gasparilla Bowl in it, because I think that's how most people felt coming into this one. It's nice to see these guys off. I wish Emory Jones had played better, because I do feel like he's handled himself with class this year, in particular with all the stuff swirling with Mullen and Richardson. And it would have been really easy to lash out at people and defend yourself and those sorts of things. And he's been very classy throughout the entire thing. I would have loved to have seen him go out with a win. I would have loved to have seen him prove to people that some of the things that they've been saying about him are wrong. But unfortunately, what happened tonight is he basically sort of he gathered up all the things other than the turnovers that have frustrated us all year long and just threw them in one big soup for the game against Central Florida tonight. And the coaches did the same thing. And, I think it was after the Vanderbilt game, people were upset about us people were upset with us because we were complaining about different things. And, well, how could you complain? Florida won.
Nitpicky, Will. We were being nitpicky.
Well, and the thing is you could tell that
Yep.
the only thing you came out of that Vanderbilt game with was this team's inconsistent, and that this team makes mistakes all throughout the game, and those mistakes are eventually going to cost them. And that's what's happened. So Napier has a reputation for that not being acceptable within his programs, right? That you're not going to have a guy make a tackle for a loss and then stand over and taunt the guy in a game that's either tied or you're behind. Well, I guess we were ahead by a point at that point, but those sorts of things aren't going to be acceptable, right? We'll see. I mean, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but at the end of the day, those things clearly have been acceptable under this staff, and it cost Florida at times, and certainly cost them the night against Central Florida.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get to Gators Breakdown Plus Discord members, taking a look at the defensive stats right quick before we head over there. Gervin Dexter leads the team, 9 total tackles, 8 of them solo, 1 tackle for loss there. Trey Dean with a high number of tackles there, but we also saw him lost in coverage at times, missing tackles as well. They're just kind of par for the course when you look at Trey Dean's play this year. Mari Burney, 6 tackles, 5 solos. Mill mentioned earlier, had that dropped interception. It would have been tough, as you said, to jump past there, laser jump past there from Gatewood. But Mari Burney not able to come up with the interception, but in position to make the play. Derek Wingo, Rashad Torrance, 6 tackles apiece. Nice to see young linebacker there, Derek Wingo, come up there. Brenton Cox with a few nice plays as well, 5 tackles for him, 1 sack. Had that really big quarterback run there for UCF, and he just stonewalls the quarterback there. Brenton Cox. Tyron Hopper was everywhere in the first half, of course, got thrown out for a phantom punch, but more of a push. But I guess they want to call it a punch and throw him out of the game. 4 tackles for him. He was everywhere on the field, 1.5 tackle for loss. If you're watching the YouTube version, you can sit and look at the rest of the defensive stats right there. But the big takeaways, Will, from the defense, mostly Gervin Dexter, Brenton Cox, Tyron Hopper in the first half, and just giving, as I said in the first half, flying all over the field, creating all kind of havoc, but too many times in the second half, not able to stop the big play. UCF gets their ground game going. The points that we saw this year, wasn't a great performance by UCF on offense by any means. Their quarterback really couldn't hit much with consistency. Was able to hit the ball down the field more so than Emory Jones did, and enough to break away from the Gators.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, the offense didn't do him a lot of favors, right?
No.
So you had 3 3-and-outs and 1 4-and-out on downs out of, I think, 6 or 7 total drives there in the second half. So the defense wasn't getting a lot of rest. And obviously the defense was thin because of some of the guys up front, especially, who weren't playing in this game. Dexter, I think, played real well. Obviously, acquitted himself. You can see it in some of the stats there. Hopper, obviously, I think, was the star. Everybody was looking at that, going, "How's this guy not played all year, or how has he not played very much?" Thought Derek Wingo played pretty well as well. Human Milan was actually out there quite a bit, and you saw him making a little bit of an impact.
Scooby Williams early, young linebacker, freshman linebacker out there early as well.
A little bit. I got to tell you, if Napier's going to do a sales job, I really want to see if he can. Let's convince Kyrie Elam to come back one more year. I don't think he's going to be able to do it, but Elam and Marshall out there are pretty solid. And so, with some of the guys, you hope that you get some instant impact from a guy like Kamari Wilson coming in, and then obviously Rashard Torrance and some of the guys at safety have been getting better throughout the year, but still, I think it was Trevez Johnson who got beat on the long throw,
and he was making some nice plays before that.
Absolutely, but again, that goes back to the inconsistency and goes back to making sure that you've got the competition that's there. So look, I think Florida has the bones of a team that can be very good. I don't know if they have the bones of a team that can compete for the SEC yet. I think that's that's going to become a miracle if Napier has them competing for it next year. But I think if you add a couple of elite guys, like if you think about what Urban Meyer did when he came in 2005, he had a team that went 9-3, struggled on offense sometimes. Had to sort of redesign the offense and put a fullback in there after a bye week before Georgia, and those sorts of things. I think that's probably what you're looking at next year. But then when you actually, if you can bring in a couple of guys who are high level skill guys. Now, I mean, obviously Meyer hit pretty heavy with Tim Tebow and Percy Harvin. I'm not saying you're going to be able to bring in a guy like Harvin, but if you can hit in your bump class, your second class, with guys like that, then all of a sudden the jump is possible pretty quickly, especially if all the dumb penalties and special teams mistakes and all that stuff starts to get eliminated. So I actually come out of this, obviously disappointed that you lose the game. You'd like to win it. But I'm not devastated or anything like that. I don't feel like Florida was an inferior team to Central Florida. I feel like they were an inferior coached team to Central Florida. I feel like that from a disciplinary perspective, you knew that it was going to get chippy at some point, and just about all the personal fouls went Florida's way, or went against Florida. And so I think those are things that hopefully can be easily fixed. And with some technique, I think that some of these guys who've struggled, especially, the minute that deep ball went up to O'Keefe, you were like, well, that one's getting caught, because that's what's happened all year long, right?
I even said in the Discord chat, I felt that play right before it even happened. I was like, this is where they're going to take their shot and get it. And it happened.
Well, and that's the thing, right, is that I'm not sure that there's been a time this year where a team's taken their shot against Florida and hasn't been able to get it, because, you put it up there, you put enough air under it, and the Florida DBs have not been able to adjust. And that's really been a 2-year problem now for Florida. Whereas, when Florida had its shots, Emory Jones overthrew it by 4 or 5 yards just about every time. And, if he hits some of those big plays, Florida's up 30 to 10 or something, and the game's not even remotely close. So, if Kyle Trask is the quarterback, this game, Florida wins easily. And
Florida's not playing UCF if Kyle Trask is the quarterback, Will.
That may be true, but I guess that my point, though, is that with significant improvement in the passing game, the Florida is the significantly better team, with the handicap that they had behind center tonight, and with the handicap that they had in terms of the play calling, where they were putting it in the hands of a guy who was clearly struggling. Then Central Florida's a better team, and that's the reality. It sucks, but that's the reality, and we got.
Oh, something happened with Will there. We'll get him back there. Hopefully, don't know what happened there. But we'll get him back. There we go. There he is.
You kicked me out. What are you doing?
I don't think I kicked you out.
I was gonna say I was just about ready to curse. You were gonna have to bleep me.
Hey, here we go. Instant reaction. Something new happened there. So yeah, I don't know what happened there, but you're back. You're back. All right. Well, we'll get to Gators Breakdown Plus Discord members. Of course, being a member there gets you the benefit here. We'll end the season, put a bow on the season with Gators Breakdown Plus Discord members. But before we get there, of course, one more word from my bookie. It's bowl season, of course, but it's holiday season as well. And holiday season is upon us, and my bookie is in the giving spirit with 12 straight days of giveaways every day. There's a new exclusive promotion for you to redeem, and the best part is it's all free when you sign up and make your first deposit with my bookie. Starting a couple of days ago on December 21st and ending on January 1st, you can bring in the new year right with giveaways that can help you fill your stocking with cash this holiday season. From odds boost to casino chips to straight up blocks, my bookie's 12 days of giveaways is a can't miss promotion. And that's not all. To get you started, my bookie is matching all first time deposits up to $1,000 with my promo code Gators. That's double your funds to double your winnings and get in on all the best action at mybookie.ag. So don't miss out. Double your first deposit up to $1,000 by using promo code Gators. Head to MyBookie, place your bets, and get in on the best 12 days of the year. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. All right, so here we go. We're going to try this for the first time. Let me hit over there to the Discord side of everything. All right, guys. Over here on Discord, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, there we go. What's up, Nick?
Yep.
All right, guys, you've been listening to us for the last few minutes. So get your thoughts here as well. So who wants to start this off? We can do Q&A style, or you guys can just comment along the way, but kind of, radio call-in style right here.
Well, Dave, if no one's going to talk, I will, because I always have something to say.
But
mine was just a question for both you and Will. Why do you think, after it was so apparently obvious that Emory wasn't going to be able to get the job, that one of the three other quarterbacks on the roster didn't at least get a chance under center?
I think it's just right. This staff is ride or die with Emory. I'm not sure I don't know. I mean, I agree. I think you probably try something different. If we would have saw the interceptions like we did versus FSU, I think we probably do see a different quarterback. But I think they still thought that he gave him the best chance. And since he wasn't turning the ball over, but you were missing. You left a lot of plays out on the field there with Emory Jones. And granted. We're not the coaches. I would have given another guy a shot there, as you said, probably midway through the third quarter once he starts missing some of those deep passes down the field again. I think you got to try something different. See if one of those guys out there that are backing up him, Del Rio or Kitna, can hit those downfield throws. But they certainly were not there with Emory. He held the offense back. But honestly, I still think you probably have a good chance winning the game, keeping Emory out there and just running the ball with the running back. So I wish that would have happened more so than maybe even switching quarterbacks. But I just I can't speak for the staff, only just that they probably trust Emory much more than they do the young guys.
Yeah, I think it was close until there was a minute left in the third, right? I mean, it's 19-17 until there's a minute left in the third.
That's all I can say.
Yep, I think so too. I think we're glad it's over. But go ahead, Will.
Well, I was just going to say it was close until you get to that bomb to make it 26-17 there with a minute left in the third quarter. So to me, the reason that they didn't take him out.
And what happened? Everybody go to bed?
I guess they can't hear us.
Yeah.
I don't know if Will is speaking, but I can't hear Will.
Oh, you can't hear Will?
No.
Oh, that might be what it is. That might be an issue there. That's weird. You hear me, though.
Is he even in?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. I bet it is. I know what's happening there. Yeah, it's since I'm in the Discord, you guys can hear me, but you can't hear Will.
Yeah, you just have to tell him what I'm talking, Dave.
Turned
Will
on
needs to get in
because
Discord.
I didn't want
Yeah.
They didn't want the competing.
So I guess I can let you guys know when you're up there. So I'll let Will finish his thought, and then I'll give somebody else the floor. Because Will can hear you guys. So
yeah, I was just gonna say I think the staff wanted Emery to finish
Like
his
the
career
Wizard
as
of
a
Oz
starter,
right here.
right?
You see the behind the glass, or behind the curtain.
All right, let him go, Dave.
Yep. Okay. Learning process here. So, all right. Who else has got another thought here? I'll bring you. Introduce yourself, whoever you are, and then everybody know there who you are, and then I will. I'll let you know when Will is done, and I'll bring the next person in. Hey, Cash, you in here? All right.
Who are we waiting on?
Yeah, go ahead if you want. If you got something to say.
Nah, I'm good, really. I mean, unless y'all got something for me to go off of, I kind of got my thing out.
Yeah,
So-
okay. Well, I know you did say you're glad it's over, and I think we all kind of share that sentiment whatsoever. One more last game. I hate it for the players, especially somebody like Malik Davis, who hometown game was showing out in his last game. Doesn't get a chance to kind of finish the game off when he's out there performing and that's all you could really ask for. I know we all have clamored for Damian Pearson. He was playing so well in the first half, but Malik Davis out there showing what he's worth and getting the yards, getting the carries, scoring a touchdown, and then he just magically just doesn't get the ball anymore.
Yeah, seems like that's been the MO all year, right? They have been stubborn. They've stuck to their guns.
Some interesting choices for. Or should I speak now? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, boy. He can hear you. But then I'll let you know when you guys can hop in.
Well, what I was saying, wasn't it interesting the choices that they made for coaches? It's the worst special teams that we've had in quite some time. We make the special teams coordinator the head coach. Possibly the worst linebacker play we've had in recent memory. So we'll make the linebacker coach the DC. And absolutely no quarterback development throughout the year. So let's make the quarterback coach the offensive coordinator. That was some impressive thinking there.
Yeah, well, to extend those two thoughts, Billy Gonzalez and John Hevesy are named co-offensive coordinators before the season, but not. I guess it was Hevesy and Gonzalez, and it's a good point that Gonzalez not a chance who's been in this offense quite for a long time, not calling plays.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. I mean, they weren't scoring a ton when Mullen was in charge before they got rid of Hevesy and Grantham. So I'm not really all that concerned that maybe they were missing something, other than the fact that these are guys who are new, right? They're guys who don't necessarily know these players as well as maybe some of the other coaches might. But I don't know. It's one of those things where, especially in this game, they've had a month to prepare, and they should be ready to make adjustments regardless of who they are.
Yes, you said they had a month to prepare. I think they may have practiced 5 or 6 times. I think you get 14 or 15 bowl practices and did not even take advantage of all of them.
The coaches had a month to prepare.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, somebody's going to hire them. Well, at least maybe they shouldn't after this, but they were auditioning too. You figure if you want to be an offensive coordinator in the SEC, that this was your opportunity to show it. And suspect they're going to be playing in like the FBS level next year or something.
Yeah, makes you wonder. I mean, you have not heard a lot about any of this current staff getting jobs anywhere. So somebody had messaged that to me in the Twitter DM that did I kind of find it alarming that none of those guys are you don't hear those guys getting jobs anywhere, and I guess so, but maybe keeping it under wraps a bit. I guess you probably would have heard some hints if Brewster or C. Rob or somebody there was some word that C. Rob may be getting a look at, from Napier during bowl practices, maybe a relationship with the players, see how that goes and all that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there will be any holdovers from the staff. With C-Rob being the only one that if we had taken any of the rumors from the last couple of weeks to heart, he would have been the only one to really even given a chance. So, we can get a fresh start. I think after this game, we all want to see that fresh start. We're ready to turn the page to the Billy Napier era. All right. Yeah. So this did not turn out like I thought it would. I had the test, Will. Everything's good. I can hear them. They can hear me, but I didn't think about them not being able to hear you. So
We'll fix it for next year. That way,
yes.
during the Napier era, we'll be able to do this.
Yeah, that was kind of this was a test run here for that. That's easy. It's an easy fix, but that's one part that I didn't even think about, honestly. So, well, this stat. Well, here you go. I meant to throw this in at the beginning. Andrea Adelson, she tweeted it out during the game. Interesting little nugget here via ESPN Stats and Info. The last in-state school other than Miami and Florida State to beat Florida was Stetson in 1938.
Well, I mean, this is the first staff to lose to Kentucky in like 40 years. And, they've lost to Missouri and got blown out by South Carolina. So I suppose that's a fitting stat to put on at the end of the era. It started out with so much promise, obviously, in terms of Felipe Franks turning things around and feeling positive about him. Even though he was sort of the anti-Emory Jones, right? Shushing the crowd and that sort of stuff, especially in that 2018 campaign, the 3 straight, Power Bowls that they went to, under Mullen, you're sitting there going, okay, like things are heading in the right direction. I'll be honest, though, the thing that concerned most of us who were recruitniks were that we were sort of going to be perpetually 10-3. So, I do sort of look at this season has been rough, right? And I think it's been rough for us, but it's really been rough for all Florida fans. But at the end of the day, I think that the roughness of this particular year might actually end up being a blessing in disguise. Because if Napier is able to come in and is able to turn the recruiting around and is able to turn the discipline around and is able to sort of implement a Saban-like process to the overall organization, then I think maybe this season ends up being that place where you say, hey, if we'd have been in perpetual 10-3 mode, then we never would have made the changes that needed to be made. And one of the things I think that's really encouraging is that I do think this season convinced the administration that changes needed to be made and agreed to, right? That was sort of the thing that Napier was pushing for, I think, in some of the negotiations, with making sure that he had money for the staff. And if the rumors today on The Athletic or the reporting from The Athletic is true, there's a bunch of NFL guys who are about to come into the room and they aren't going to put up with, the shenanigans that got put up with in some situations this year. So,
well, you read my mind, man. That's where I was going to go next.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what's coming up, right? I mean, you got obviously. I mean, if I was Billy Napier, I'd have this game playing all off season long, like because there's going to be crowing from UCF or Central Florida, and that's going to be there, and obviously they're not the goal, but at the same time. Or maybe you replay the Georgia game over and over, but there's plenty of film to put up on the when they're up for those 5 a.m. workouts to take advantage of and to motivate the players this offseason, because I'm sure that the bulk of them coming back are going to be are going to want to make sure they don't have this taste in their mouth again.
Absolutely will. So, yeah, going to your point there, I guess we'll give it a little bit of update. Some reports did come out from the Athletic and Football Scoop as well, of some of Billy Napier's next staff hires. Look, we've seen the last few days we'll even adding to the Army assistant strength and conditioning coaches. I mean, we were happy we just got one in Nick Savage, and the way it looked like he had turned Florida around, early in the Dan Mullen era. But now we're getting word of assistant strength and conditioning coaches here. We're getting all giddy and excited because, as Napier is keeping to his word of building that Army here. So if we go and look at it right here, and there's the word coming out today from the Athletic, Napier seeking to bring aboard Chris Rump from the Chicago Bears, former Gator as well. When I think he went to Tennessee, and now he's in the NFL there with Chicago Bears. Carl Scott from the Minnesota Vikings, and Eric Henderson of the Los Angeles Rams on the defensive side, and also aims to reunite with New York Giants offensive line coach Rob Sell. The source indicated to the Athletic. So those discussions are on hold until those NFL teams complete their seasons. Also, the Athletic adds Napier might be able to move sooner in targeting Michigan State assistant William Pigler as tight ends coach. Spartans wrap up their season by facing Pitt in the Chick-fil-A Bowl on December 30th. Contracts aren't finalized. The staff is primed to feature 4 $1 million assistant coaches with Scott Henderson Sale and co-defensive coordinator Patrick Toney. Napier, of course, has that $7.5 million allocated for full-time assistants. Last year's own staff under Dan Mullen earned around $6.1 million, though defensive coordinator Todd Grantham was among the highest-paid defensive coordinators at $1.8 million. Ugh. It's a kick to the gut there, of course, but we all knew how much he was getting paid, and part of the reason why we were so ticked at everything there. So to add to that, Will, Football Scoop ended up putting some more info out there, especially from the Rob Sale side, that Billy Napier is poised to add Rob Sale into an elevated offensive assistant role. Numerous sources told Football Scoop. Sale is expected to have heavy input on the Gators' offensive schemes. So interesting there, Billy Napier, I asked him about that at the press conference. He's going to be the play caller, but it does look like now Rob Sale, who he has a big-time relationship with, an extended relationship with for Billy Napier and Rob Sale, that he will have heavy input on the Gators' offensive scheme. Additionally, per multiple sources, Napier is poised to bring in Carl Scott, a former Alabama Crimson Tide assistant who has spent this season on staff with the Minnesota Vikings, into a co-defensive coordinator role that will entail Scott overseeing the Gators' outside linebackers. And they go on to say The Athletic has also reported that Napier has targeted Sale and Scott, among others, to round out his staff. So there you go, some big names there, Will, coming from the NFL side of things. And those guys have been in college, coached college, Alabama ties. It's always nice to hear about there, especially with Billy Napier and their relationship there. But as we turn the page from the disappointing showing in the 29-17 loss to UCF, that everybody at the same time is just ready to, okay, it is what it is. We'll turn the page. We're excited for Billy Napier, what he can bring to the table. And on the same day, we'll get all those big-time names there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that jumps out to me about all those guys is their age. I mean, you've got Rumpf, who's 50, but then you look at Sale, who's 42, Henderson, who's 38, and Scott, who I think is 34. And then you look at Patrick Toney, who I think is 32. And, you heard all the stories of him playing PlayStation the night before early signing day with Shamar James. And you sit there and go, is Greg Nord playing PlayStation? Or, is
I don't think Todd Grantham playing.
Todd Grantham playing PlayStation.
He's not playing Call of Duty till 2 o'clock in the morning.
So from the ability to relate to these guys, I think that really makes a difference. And then you look at a guy like Henderson, who's coached Aaron Donald, right, in St. Louis. And so when he tells somebody like Gervon Dexter or somebody like Desmond Watson what they need to do, he just needs to have him text Aaron Donald and ask him, should they do that? Would that help? So I think those are some things that at the end of the day, one, make a difference from building relationships. And that's one of the things that Napier's really been pushing. But the other thing is just the credibility of those guys who are going to come into the room. A guy who's 38 and spent 5 years, 3 with the Rams, and then, has Aaron Donald on his resume. What are you going to say to that guy? So I think it's a positive development. Obviously, I think going for the youth makes a big difference. I think, having co-defensive coordinators is probably good because we're going to see a turnaround on the defensive side of the ball. I have no doubt. And so I suspect that some of those defensive guys are going to be in high demand in the next year or two. And obviously 2 years ago, if we'd had a competent defense, Florida's probably playing for the championship. So, we'll see. I mean, look, the jury's still out on Napier. It's going to be out on Napier until about August of next year. I think we'll know where he is in terms of, at least the first steps that he needs to take in terms of both recruiting and then also, what's the staff doing during the offseason? How are these guys developing? Those sorts of things. We all thought Nick Savage was going to be a panacea for the strength and conditioning program, and Florida just got dominated in the fourth quarter against Central Florida. So, you don't want to jump to conclusions. I think there's some historical markers that you need to hit. And I think these coaches suggest that Napier has a plan for how to hit those. But obviously, we're going to have to keep monitoring because, there's only one team that can win the championship every year and usually only 2 that can make it to the playoff from the SEC. So until they expand out to 12 teams, you're going to have to start hitting those historical markers. And we'll be here to tell everybody whether we're hitting them or not as things progress, certainly.
Well, I think everybody was ready for the change anyway, of what was going to happen. But then you get that performance versus Central Florida, and look, of course, it kind of you look at it. Some people look at it and say, "Oh, of course, this is how it ends." And that last stat there, of course, that I threw out there, and that ESPN Stats and Info put out there, the last in-state school other than Miami and Florida State to beat Florida was Stetson in 1938. I mean, that's just look. That's how the Dan Mullen era ends, unfortunately. And look, yeah, of course, he didn't coach this game, but this is his staff, his players. They were in this position because of Dan Mullen and how that ended. So, not to pile dirt on him or anything. I'm just saying that's just how it ends with him fired a few weeks ago. His team, his players, and this is the position they were in to play UCF in a bowl game and then lose that game 29-17 there. So, I guess we got the bragging rights over FSU a bit, about the only bragging rights we can take away from Dan Mullen's final season at Florida.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Mullen has left Florida in a stronger position than he took it over. I think that's undoubtedly true. The level of player that he's brought in is higher than the level of player that Jim McElwain had. But I think Mullen had considerable warts. And so when you look at those warts, some of those warts were tied in with loyalty to guys who were older. Some of that was tied in with, allowing disciplinary issues to fester. And there were other things too. And Strickland even spoke to this when he dismissed Mullen, is that the wins and losses, or the lack of wins and the multitude of losses, were a symptom of the things that were sort of rotting underneath that in the program. And so Mullen allowed that to happen. And so I think we need to be critical of those sorts of things. At the same time, I do think that the program's in better shape than when he took over, when Jim McElwain left. And so both of those things can be true. And so I think there's an ability for somebody to come in and make it be a relatively quick turnaround. Again, I don't think you're necessarily going 12-1 next year, but can you go 10-3 next year and then get a big recruiting class and turn that into a 12-1? I think that's possible. And you got to have the right guy, and Napier has to be the right guy. But Mullen has left enough tools in the cupboard that the next coach is going to be able to, I think, take advantage of it if he's skilled enough to do so. So, again, I look at it and I say, yeah, it's a fitting into the season. The season's been frustrating. This season is sort of an amalgam of all the different warts that have been wrong within the program. But there's a lot of things that are right within the program too. And I think, we do need to take note of the fact that, when Urban Meyer left in 2010, he said that this was a broken program. And he looked at all the arrests and all the stuff that had gone on. None of that stuff has gone on over the last couple of years. And so, from the standpoint of, is this a build or a rebuild? It's clearly a rebuild, right? There are good players on the Florida roster. They're inexperienced and undisciplined, and those are things that Billy Napier is going to have to deal with. But I think they're good players on the roster. I think they're better than the players that Dan Mullen inherited. And so I do think that there's an opportunity to turn this around pretty quickly, assuming that Napier is the right guy for the job. I'm not mad at Dan Mullen. It didn't work out. This was always an experiment. It was an experiment of whether you could recruit in that, 8 to 12 level nationally and compete. And it turns out that that's not true, especially if you don't hit a quarterback. And, Emory Jones, up until this game, has not been terrible. He's been a bit of a turnover machine, but he hasn't been terrible. But he hasn't been great. And the problem is then we saw this last year with Kyle Trask, that Florida needed great in order to get to where Dan Mullen was hoping to take him. And the minute it became average, then the whole house of cards fell apart. So I think that's really what excites people about Napier, though, right? Is he's talking about process. He's talking about slow build. He's talking about making sure that all the things that underlie those wins are in place so that you don't have a house of cards, that you've got a strong foundation that's beneath everything. We'll see whether he can deliver on those promises, but certainly I think that the foundation is there for him to be able to do that. He'll have to rearrange a few things, maybe fix a few cracks in the foundation, but I don't think he has to completely overhaul the house. And so that's sort of the lesson I take from Dan Mullen and his departure.
Yeah, all started last year, Will, that LSU game, of course, and just never really got off the ground from that. I mean, you go back and look since that game, maybe 3 good games Florida played, twice versus Alabama and this year versus Tennessee. I mean, given the opponent, I think you have to put that in there as well, I think. That's about the only good games ever since that LSU game last year. I think when you look at the opponents that Florida played. So, look, I've had a lot of fun since 2018. Dan Mullen got in here. I had a lot of fun covering Florida. Had a lot of fun going to games and tailgating with everybody and being a fan. But it was time for a change. And look, tonight personified that. It was the best example of that and where this program is at right now. And I think that's why we're excited. We are excited to see what the next step is for Florida. I agree with you. I think there's some good players on this roster to do something with, and tough schedule. Walks into a very, very tough schedule the first month of the season next year, Will. But before we even get to that point, of course, we got a February signing day to get to. We'll see what the next few weeks hold as far as that goes. A lot of positive momentum going there after early signing day. So that's something to look forward to as well when we get to learn even more about Billy Napier. Then spring ball. We got a lot to learn about Billy Napier. He gave us that step process he has. I think there's 8 phases of it, and there's something every day for these players and so in a calendar to do, all the way up to kickoff and game day when that comes around in September. But we'll be here, of course, and it's kind of to wrap everything up here as we wrap up the Dan Mullen era, put a bow in the 2021 season as well. Been good for us too. A lot of growth there with Gators Breakdown, and I can't thank everybody out there enough. I know it didn't work out like I wanted it to tonight with the Gators Breakdown Plus members, but launching that as well, and a big thank you to everybody who's jumped on board with that. But it's been a fun season that we got to cover here, an eventful season. Or I guess I could say we had fun covering it. I wouldn't. Let me rephrase that. Not a fun season, but we did have a lot of fun covering it. And only, the way we do here on Gators Breakdown, expanded, a lot more coverage, and we put a bow on it, and we move and transition to another era.
Yeah, I think one of the things about college football that I really value, it's something where, my father and I don't have a lot in common, but one of the things we have in common is the Florida Gators. Go down there and watch a game with him every year, and my brother's gotten involved in that too. And so, the wins and losses are important, and I care about those sorts of things. But the bringing together of people, I think, is one of the things that makes college football so much more special to me than things like the NFL and that sort of stuff, right? And so it's not necessarily always the wins and losses. Obviously, you want to celebrate the championships, but the journey to get there is actually sort of the fun part. I mean, when you look back, like I look back to when Mullen was hired, and we had Sykes on like a midnight episode when we were talking through, and we made jokes about Chip Kelly and how we thought he was going to be a great fit and what a disaster he's been at UCLA. And it's been a fun ride to sort of progress from where we were at the start to where we are now, and the relationships that we have with people that we had at the start and where those are now. And so, I just have to say thank you to you, man, for having me on here and giving me this platform and exposing me to all of these people who love the Florida program as much as we do. And it's just a blast, right? It's a blast if people trust us to talk about it. Certainly it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And we do it because we love the program and we enjoy football. And certainly I think we're excited that there are better days coming. And, the national championships that hopefully are coming in the next 3 or 4 years are going to be an awesome high because of the steps you've taken, right? And it's no fun if you just win every year. I'm not sure I'd want to be an Alabama fan at this point because it's just expected. And I think we kind of felt that in 2008, right? I mean, even the players talked about it a little bit after that 2008 season where there was like this expectation and it was a slog. And the 2009 season, especially with Mullen leaving and Adazio taking over at offensive coordinator, and the expectation you were going to put up 50 or 60 points. And, it just didn't materialize there in 2009, and they fell short to Alabama. I think we all thought that was going to go on forever, and then it didn't. And so, if Billy Napier is able to come in here and build the program into something that's competing for championships, hey, at the end of the day, I think we all need to really embrace that and appreciate it. And I think we'll appreciate it a lot more because of sort of being out in the desert over the last decade. So it's a long-winded way of me saying thank you, happy holidays to everybody, Merry Christmas, and certainly appreciate you, Dave, and appreciate everybody who's helped us grow and helped us participate here at Gators Breakdown and also over at Read and Reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, check out Will there at Read and Reaction. He's expanded that too. Gators Breakdown, Read and Reaction kind of we grew a lot this fall with expanded coverage in multiple mediums there. So it's been a lot of fun watching the growth from both sides. And as you said, I tried to get this out on it is past midnight now, so it is December 24th. So it is Christmas Eve now, but I know everybody's gonna be hitting the road. So one reason I needed to do this because I got to hit the road pretty early on Christmas Eve. So needed to get something out there, a little instant reaction after the UCF game, but also give you guys something out there as you riding around, visiting family on the Christmas holiday. Give you something to listen to. Wish it was better. Wish it was better news to listen that you could listen to. But you get Will and our thoughts here as this season wraps up, and the Gators finish 6-7 on the season, and we can officially turn the page. I'm excited for it, Will. So lots to get into. We've already coached. We didn't get to cover the Muschamp McElwain transition, but we did get to cover the McElwain Mullen transition. So a lot to learn still about Billy Napier, style of offense, style of his assistants defense. A lot out there about Tony and the style of defense. All these new hires coming up as well. So keep it locked in, keep it tuned in here, even during the off season. We'll have it all. We'll dive into Billy Napier and what we can expect from him in his Gator career.
Absolutely, man. Never a dull moment. That I think you sort of coined that moniker, not knowing what it really meant.
No.
And now that you know what it means, you know what it means in terms of the time commitment you have to make. So, nobody better in the business is Gator Day, folks, and certainly. Head over to the Gators Breakdown Plus and make sure you sign up for that because it's cool to support somebody who's as plugged into the program, but also as good a person as Dave. So make sure you support him over there.
Thank you, Will. Thank you much. Happy holidays, Will, you and your family, everybody out there as well. Gators Breakdown listeners, Read and Reaction listeners and readers, all that good stuff. You can, Will, what you got? Are you really going to review this game much at all, or what you got? I know in the holidays in the next couple of days too. So what you got?
I got some time off. There'll be some stuff up there. There's actually an article up today looking at Jack Miller, the transfer, and an incorrect prediction about what's going to happen in the Gasparilla Bowl there at the end of it. But but if you're interested in knowing, Miller's got a pretty decent profile in terms of his recruiting profile and where he ranks to Joe Burrow. So the question I asked in that one is he the next Joe Burrow? And so head over there and see if you want that. The other thing is I've had people ask me to provide audio versions of the articles. So that hopefully is going to be coming over the holidays is get that set up so people can sign up and get audio versions of the articles that I write. If you travel, if it's just easier for you to listen to it rather than read, you can hear my sultry voice as I tell you all the things that are happening in Gatorland with the articles. So that's what's coming up next week or two.
You have to change the site to listen and reaction.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, man. I it's too much work to change, so we're just gonna go with it.
All right, that's Will Miles. You can find him on Twitter at Will Miles SEC and readandreaction.com and on YouTube at Read and Reaction. Him and Nick Knudsen get together and break everything down there on their side. I'm the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.